But what we do and what I teach people is after we get one layer in the tray, we then basically press down, sort of like playing the piano, pop the seed down into the tray, and add another layer of the coconut core so it does the exact same thing. And then from there we do the exact same thing with our fingers, and we've now created a beautiful seed pocket. And then we would go back to the seed that we just are looking to plant, pour some into our hand, and basically sprinkle one or two of each seed, because we don't know if each of the seeds, and if you get 3 or 4, this isn't, you're not going to be sent to the principal. This is fine. We can always take them apart and plant them later when we go to our transplanting, which will be another episode. So basically what I do is I just fill these up accordingly, as you can see, bing, bang, boom. And then I'll just take a little bit more, cover it over the top, and just like with any seedling, we will then water it into place. And what I do is I use one of these water bottles that are pressured, because the seedlings right now are very fragile and I don't want to disturb them from where I planted them. So I'll just basically soak them down. And now one of the keys, because what's going to end up happening, as you can see, you have all these different seedling trays with all different stuff on them. I would suggest you label them. Simple marker tag, you get these easily, ice cream, popsicle stick. Label them as such and label them with the date you planted them. Now, as I show you, as I go around the table, this is the exact same thing, but for this I use a floating tray. It's a different seed, but it's the same principle. And this is because these seeds are going to go into a hydroponic growing tower, which you see behind me, which is a little different than a raised bed situation, which again we're going to get into in the next episode. But it's more important to understand what the seedlings are going to do. These are about 20 days old. Yeah, a little younger than that. I planted these on 11/15. Now, how would I remember when I planted this tray unless I have that little stick? And it tells me when to transplant. And again, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but these are pretty much ready to go to the next step. So all we then do, and you could see as I step around, I'll come to the camera. This tray right here is the same thing that we did, as I just showed you, a week ago. And as you look, you're starting to see the little guys popping. When I saw that yesterday morning, I was very happy. And now these are going to grow up to become the size of these. And it's a constant step up. So we're always stepping up our plants once they start. So this is basically how we start a garden from a seed. Now, if the container, the seedling plant, in the package says to directly sow into the ground or a pot, that's when we're going to create a growing medium with all of our ingredients, what we're going to get into next. And then we just do the exact same thing, but instead of the tray, we put it directly into the growing pot. Moving on, as you now know that we planted in coconut, we put our seeds to the coconut, we watered them down. We're now going to make sure that since we're in December, January, February, where the temperature should be about lower than 80 degrees, we can keep these outside in direct sunlight until they begin their sprouting. My only suggestion to those out there is, if you can, is have some type of light shade covering over them to protect them from the heavy rain downpours that we do get. One of the things I do not enjoy is watching my seedling trays get pelted with rainwater. So Yesterday it rained hard. All I did was I moved the tray inside underneath my screened-in patio. They'll grow there fine. Again, we're not going to grow that we need pollinators yet. We're not at that point. What we're at the point is trying to get this to starting to this, so that when we're ready to take these guys out to do our transfer, we're looking at these sweet peppers and we're noticing within the sweet peppers that they've developed their first true leaf. Very, very important. Because people will tell me that they don't know when to take this to the next step. And the next step is if you are looking at these seedlings, they're no longer just little pop-ups with this first baby growth. They've actually have, and these are again sweet peppers, so that they have the striations in the actual true leaf itself. So that'll tell me these are going to start to need nutrients, okay? The coconut itself has no nutrients. Let me repeat that. The coconut itself has no nutrients. We are adding nutrients so that by creating this flotilla, as I call it, I can now put nutrients into the water, into the liquid, to start the root development of that first true leaf. Hopefully, if that doesn't make sense to anybody, again, I'm always here to help. But we don't really want this guy to grow this way yet. We really want these guys to grow this way. And if I demonstrate this on a larger scale, because I always like to be prepared in the planning, don't mind me, but here's a tray. And you could see in the development of this tray, I'm growing in coconut. And this is for those of you out there who are much like the average grower. You're not going to be growing 250 of one variety of plant for your garden. I am, because I feed people. I feed communities. So you're going to put 1 or 2 seedlings, as I said, in each cell, just like we did. And even though this is this type of floating cell, this is professional size, you see that I've got 3 starter plants, seedlings. These are 23 days old, red cabbage, okay? So you could see what the coconut has allowed me to do. Well, I didn't do it. Mommy did it, Mommy Nature. So she, through the miracle of germination, has created this plant. And if you look closely at that root development, see how the roots are coming down? The roots on the bottom are just as elongated as the plant is on the top. This is perfection. But this is also telling me, because I could speak plant, it's ready for more nutrition. So what ends up happening is, and if you remember correctly, we said if it's okay to drop a couple of extra seeds into the individual cell, because they're so small. All you have to do is literally peel these guys open, and I could have 3 plants. Now, remember I told you what's the most economical way to grow a garden? Seeds. 3, 6, 9 at Home Depot, if they have it. So you're going to say to me, okay, Ian, it's got its first true leaf on it. It's ready to go. I just took it out of its original coconut core. What do I do with it? Well, again, in the planning, we said, where are we going to be growing? Are we going to be creating a raised bed? Are we going to be growing in a pot? Most people don't build raised beds because raised bed you can't take with you. A pot I could easily take with me wherever I go. This hydroponic farm that's behind me, I can disassemble this. And this big of a farm I can disassemble in probably 2 hours, put it on a truck and take it wherever I go. And guess what, folks? I'm going to have to because I'm renting. I'm a renter. I haven't even closed here yet in town, but I knew I wanted a garden. I knew that if I did not get going when I got going, that I was not going to have the food I wanted for Thanksgiving, and I was not going to have food, and since this is my business, for people to get to enjoy coming and getting these seedling starters from me. So, like I said, I'm growing 5 different varieties of vegetables on this one tray. So when I take the actual individual vegetable, it's called the square foot planting guide. And what that does is it tells me on the size of the container, this is about a foot, 1 foot of growing space. 1, 12, 12, 12, 12. And if I had a raised bed, I could have as many holes as I want, 12 by individual eggplants growing along the pool wall. It's the same thing. So believe it or not, for cabbages, okay, in this container, I could grow 4. So I have the choice of either replanting directly into our created soil medium, which I'm going to get into in a second because that in itself is a whole episode and then some. But I have my soil that I created and I made from a whole bunch of ingredients. Think of me as your chef. I am a chef besides. But this growing medium, which is again light and fluffy, contains the coconut. So this is going from coconut to a little bit more coconut. But we add other things into that coconut. And one of the things that we add into the coconut is something called perlite. Perlite is this white fibrous rock that's grown, it's mined for in Utah, in rock that's been there for millions of years. They take these big boulders, they break it down into minute particles, and then they blow it up. And when they blow it up, it expands with the heat, and it then becomes something of a styrofoam looking material. It's not styrofoam, okay? A lot of these products that you find in the stores, especially the cheapos, will substitute and use styrofoam in it. But I don't know about you, I don't want to eat my food out of styrofoam. So what ends up happening is we put all these ingredients together into a pot that has 1 foot of size in it, and in 1 foot, again, I could grow 4 of these plants. So I would then peel these guys apart, and then I'm going to tilt this down so you can see it and make it easier for you. I am just going to plug it into the soil, and again, I would, since I don't put them directly into the soil, I'm going to step it up. So here's for you guys how you step this up. I'm going to take the same soil, because again, I'm going on the road with this stuff. So it's going to be easier for me because I am in the planting. So I could take my 1 plant to 1 4-inch pot. And what I want to do with it is just press it into place. So let me show you that one again. I have my planter pot, no matter what size it is, because again, these are all going to be stepped up again. But what I want to do is I want to just kind of lay this in nice and lightly. And you could see by what's in it, there's a lot of stuff in it. We're going to go over that next. But then I just take my nice seedling starter that you see those roots, and that's the most important part of this plant. And what I'm going to do is just kind of lay it in so it sits on the soil itself. And then with my finger, and believe it or not, this finger is worth a couple $100 because you're going to find out all the other things in the garden I can do with it. But then I'll just press it into place very lightly. And then I'll just bring it up to center, tuck it into bed, and that's the way you planted a perfect plant. Now, what's going to end up happening for most of us out there is when you go to the stores and you buy plants that, again, are probably around this big, what you want to do, okay, and this is key for any plant, folks, and if you learn nothing today but this, I will have done my job. And that is, when you go to the container stores, take your plant out of the container, whether it's a 3, a 5, whatever you could manage, okay? If the store clerk says, "What are you doing?" please do not do that. You say, "No problem, Mr. Store Clerk." Put it back, say, "Thank you very much, I'll go to the next place." There's a reason for that. What's the most important part of the plant itself? It is not up here. It is not these little flowers that are starting to produce the fruit. It's actually down here. And because this was stepped up through the coconut process, you'll see how light and airy the roots are. And you see that they're growing downward and not spiralizing in the cup itself. Because if it spiralizes in the cup itself, it's basically choking itself. So the bigger the plant, the longer it's been in that pot, the more spirals it's going to have, the harder it's going to be to grow. So by checking on it and seeing exactly what the plant looks like even before you buy it and spend your hard-earned money on it, I want to know that that's a healthy root base. Doesn't matter, because as I'm going to show you this right now, what's going to end up happening is a plant of this size, remember we're going back to that square foot gardening method, whereas it's 4 of these per one of these, it's only 1 of these per one of these. Again, it's in the guide. So in the guide, I could show you that in this one plant space, 1 square foot, I could grow many different plant varieties and many different numbers of plants, but each specific species of plant needs its own required space. And for those of you out there that want to learn more about this, again, I didn't make it up. His name is Mel Bartholomew, okay? It's a 25-year-old system, and Mel is online, but better than that, he's got books published in your library. Go pick one up, take it out, check it out, read it, bring it home. Follow, it's going to say exactly what I'm doing, and it's going to show you the exact same things I'm showing you. It's just in a book rather than my amazing personality. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing with this plant as we would do for any plant once it comes out of that cup, going into our planting material. We will then loosen. And this again, and you can let it fall right back in because it's all part of the plant. But if you notice, I'm loosening it from the top down and at the same time pulling the roots so that there's no more spiralization, and the roots are wide open to start getting nutrition from the soil base that we've created with slow release, natural, organic fertilizers that all come from the ocean. And probably that'll take us into our next class series. But what's going to end up happening is I'll take this, and I like to plant these guys deep, leaving room for me to add more soil and compost later. Because again, a pepper plant, we're going backwards, folks, but we're going backwards for a reason. The pepper plant won't produce peppers, according to the seed pack, for 60 to 70 days. This is about 30 days. So I still need 40, 45 days of growth in perfect conditions. We live in South Florida, there is no such thing. There's so many things we have to worry about that you have no idea. From the amount of bugs to fungi, to overwatering, as you had mentioned before. But what we do is we just kind of plant it into the ground, cover him up, leaving room so that he's below the crown, and we have space to add other nutrients later as he starts growing up. And as he starts growing up, I'll do the class for that, combining it with tomatoes. Because believe it or not, we're going to force this plant to produce more fruit than it would normally. Simply, did I say simply? But simply by removing the lowerish leaves. And that's going to serve a couple of good points. But I don't want to get too far, folks. Right now, it's up to you. We're going to do this. We're going to take it to the next level. We're going to save some money. We're going to have some fun, get some therapy, play with the kids, bring out the grandkids. Teach them what you were probably taught when you were growing up, especially during the wars when we had victory gardens. That's how I learned. Grandpa simply taking me out and said, you know what? Forget the Xbox. Forget the computer. Get out in the sun, Floridian. Enjoy what you have, because it's cold. I'll take you up north right now, and you're going to have to wear a ski parka. Get out there. Get your hands dirty. It's going to give you some good therapy. It's going to give you something to do. But better than that, it's going to feed you. And in this time that's of unrest, what's better than knowing you're getting your food right from your own garden? So that's my story for today. Any questions, any comments, please. The website is www.thegourmetgardeners.org. I'm here. I'm Farmer Ian, the Gourmet Gardener, and we'll see you next time.